and you stress out because, oh my gosh, I'm not choosing between red or blue. I'm choosing between light brown and slightly light brown. It's so tough. Hi guys, Annette here and welcome to another episode of Glowing Up. So in my previous house tour video, I actually mentioned that I'm going to be doing a second part video where I'll be sharing a little bit more about my renovation journey and a little bit about how I turned this into this. So first off, I'm just going to start answering the most commonly asked questions from that previous video before I get started on some tips that might be useful for your next renovation journey. Let's get started. So what made you pick a resale flat over a BTO flat? So we kind of wanted a bigger space, and a lot of the BTOs nowadays are much smaller, and most of the new BTOs have bomb shelters that can't be touched, and we kind of wanted to have a concept that was spacious, and we knew that if we got a BTO that had a bomb shelter that cannot be hacked down, and if it's in the middle of the space, then we are likely not going to be able to have that spaciousness that we wanted. So we were just like, let's just look for a resale flat. Next, did I get a housing grant? Yes, we did, because we qualified for the housing proximity grant, which was about 30k, and that was 3 years ago, so I think it might have increased since then, but if it hasn't, then either way it still exists. Like, that grant always exists. So stay filial, kids. You can get grants that way. Next, what's the size of my house? It is 1130 square feet, which is about 105 square meters. Next, who was my interior designer? I worked with Glynis from Zinc Studio and Workshop. She was my in-laws interior designer for their house, so we knew her from there, and we just got her to do our place as well. Finally, how much was my renovation cost? It was about 100,000 to about 120,000. And before you think that's a lot, right? We really did a lot of renovation. We basically redid the entire place. And for those of you who wanted a bit of a breakdown on how much it costs, I honestly can hardly remember now, but I would say it was about 50k for wet works, another 40k for carpentry and all the custom stuff that we made, and then 20k for the furniture and stuff. Does the math add up? I don't know. And then the designer fees is somewhere in there. I'm just really not sure, so guys, sorry, it's been 3 years. But still, I think it's generally pretty reasonable. Why can't I talk? For the amount of work that we did, and I think we were just able to budget more for our renovation because we saved quite a bit on the house, because we bought a place that was pretty much untouched from the get-go. So the previous owner actually didn't use the space as a home, so it was completely not furnished or anything when we first bought it. Like, there was no existing renovation or anything that we needed to tear down, which leads me to my very first tip. Hi guys, I apologize. So we're in the edit right now, and I realized that this was actually a super abrupt segue into the tips from doing the Q&A. So I'm just here to put a title card up to denote officially that we have moved on to tips. So the FAQ portion is over, and now I'll be sharing some tips. Yes. So I thought I'll just make that clear. Let's proceed with the video. If you know you want to have a lot of renovation done, get a HDB that has the least amount of renovation that's already done. So like I mentioned just now, my husband and I really wanted to get a place that we could completely renovate and refurbish from scratch, because we kind of just wanted the fun of being able to build something from scratch and build something that belongs to us, you know. So when we were looking for houses, one of our criteria was to try and look for a place that has as little renovation done as possible. Because if you get a place that's too done up, number one, the owners are likely going to charge you a markup because the place looks nice, and number two, you're just going to spend a lot extra money having to tear down stuff. So we saved on both of these fronts, which allowed us to budget more for the renovation. That said, I know it's easier said than done. I know that the HDB that we got was quite a rare case, because most of the time it will kind of still be done up. Most of the time it was used as a home. Try your best to look for things maybe that you like, that you want to keep, or for the things that you don't like in the house that you're going to get, think about is this going to cost a lot to tear down, or is it not going to cost much to tear down? Because certain things are just going to cost more to tear down and certain things less. Tip number 2, kind of try to know what walls can be torn down and essentially just optimize the space for your lifestyle. So optimizing the spaces in your house for maximum utility is really important, because you're living in this house and you want the spaces to be an extension of your lifestyle. You know, it's not just rooms. So this is the moment where I'm going to be showing you guys the original floor plan. So as you can tell, the living room kitchen space is pretty much the same, but initially the biggest room, which was the master bedroom, was actually the room that we have now turned into the guest room. So the toilet used to be attached there as well. And then on the right, we have the second bedroom, the storeroom, and then the third bedroom. And as you can tell, we hacked all the walls on that side and built false walls in place of them. So I'm just gonna mention certain things, changes that we made in order to suit our lifestyle. So first of all was the master bedroom having no windows. And I know half of you guys were like freaking out over that. You were saying, oh my gosh, I cannot breathe. There is no ventilation, help. Which I completely understand, because that was exactly what I thought at the beginning when Raf really wanted to have no windows for his room. And it's because he really can't sleep with light coming in. So he always sleeps with blackout curtains. And so I thought about it and I figured that, okay, I mean, all my previous bedrooms did have windows, but actually when I'm sleeping, I kind of do have blackout curtains as well. So when I'm sleeping, everything is actually also closed. So when he convinced me, I just felt, I guess I could live with that. So that was one criteria that we told the interior designer to keep in mind. When it was finally done up, it actually didn't turn out as bad as I thought it would, because in the mornings, all I do is just tell Raf to open the main door and the walk-in wardrobe door of the master bedroom, just so I have some light coming in. Because as much as I do sleep with blackout curtains in the past, I do like having some light come in the morning, just so it feels like morning. As for the guest room, it just turned out that way, I guess. We replaced the wall and door of the guest room with glass windows, so I still think it doesn't feel that claustrophobic. I mean, I don't know, our guests so far have left very positive reviews of their stay, so if they're not complaining, why are you? And then the other thing is that we wanted to have a longer dining table so that we can occasionally have bigger parties, or we have relatives or friends over. Unfortunately, now we can't have more than 5 people in our house, but it's okay. Okay, I'm gonna move on to tip number 3. Try to get an interior designer and a contractor through word of mouth recommendations. I personally have seen so many friends and just people around me struggle with their renovation process because they used interior designers or contractors that they were not familiar with, that friends and people that they trusted did not have prior experiences with. So I'm not saying that getting an interior designer from Googling or from ads or whatever is always entirely bad. I'm sure there are good case studies and it might work out for some people, but I still think the safest bet would be to make sure that somebody you trust can trust this ideal contractor. So I mentioned earlier in the video that our ID worked on our in-laws' house and we're familiar with the way she's worked, so we kind of just got her over as well to do our place. So you might ask, what if somebody you're close to recommends somebody who's kind of out of your budget? Then I would say maybe try to get a few quotes from a few different friends and then compare them and just choose the cheapest one. Because I think the minute you've got that basic foundation, you can easily choose the cheapest option out of these, knowing that it won't go bad. Next thing, some things are worth spending on, but some things not really. I think this is like a general life principle where you kind of measure value by cost per usage. So if it's something you use more of, spend more on it. If it's something you hardly use, then spend less on it. So I think that kind of applies for furniture as well. So I'll just give you an example, which is my sofas. So people are always surprised when we tell them how much our sofa sets cost. Basically, we got 2 of the exact same sofas and each of them cost $600, which is honestly pretty ridiculous for an entire sofa set, because most sofa sets out there cost more. But obviously, if you were here in person and you just kind of looked at the material, it's not amazing. The fabric's pretty thin. It's not really luxe or anything, but it looks fine. So as I mentioned, I got it from a website called 42, where it's like budget furniture. It's nothing branded or anything. And to us, it didn't really matter because we knew that sofas are not going to be something that we're going to be sitting on a lot. We'll probably likely be sitting on our beds more, because that's where we sit to watch shows. And that's why we paid more for it, because on top of that, we're also sleeping on it for 1/3 of our lives, guys. So try not to scrimp on your beds unless you hardly sleep, which would not be very good for you, so you should probably sleep more if that was the case. But for our sofas, we just felt that we probably won't be sitting much on it. We'll actually sit more on our dining tables. Even if we have friends over, we'll be eating or something, so we're on the dining table. And even for me, you know, when I'm working sometimes and I want to be in the living room, I actually sit on the floor and then I put my laptop on the sofa to work. Like now, I'm actually just sitting on the floor. I'm not sitting on the sofa. Unless, like I said, you're going to be sitting on it a lot. It's your life. Also, I'm just going to give another example, which is like my TV. We paid close to $1,000 for it, which back then we thought, oh, it's kind of not that much money if we're going to occasionally cast shows onto the TV. But now we don't even use it anymore, so that was a mistake. So this is an example of something that, maybe you should probably think through, unlike me. So last thing, get an interior designer if you think you're going to struggle with the following things. So I would say this isn't really a tip, but more of sharing how an interior designer was beneficial for us, because she honestly helped us in ways that I never would have imagined. And I think most of us, you know, when we are just starting out, planning for our renovation, Pinteresting stuff here and there, and just choose this and that and that, and then you put it together and it's done. How hard can that be? Until you actually start putting it all together. Then you start noticing that there are just so many intricacies that just never crossed your mind. So I'm just gonna list some of the best parts about having an ID and how, like the things that were the most useful about having an ID. So the first one is helping us find a way to harmoniously blend different styles that we have together. So like I mentioned, Raf was more into industrial but yet grander looking kind of an aesthetic, but I was more into like a vintagey and industrial kind of style, but not so grand. But I think our interior designer managed to find that common ground between the both of us, which is that slightly more industrial look. So she put a bit of that grandness in some bits of it, and then she put a little bit of that cozy, vintage, quirky vibes that I liked at some parts. And somehow it worked together. And I really don't think we would have been able to figure that out on our own. It might have just looked like a weird pastiche of like just not well done looks. The next thing is helping us decide when we're torn between two things that are kind of same but different. The tough part when coming to when choosing stuff for your house is not the big decisions, it's always the small ones. When you are choosing the wood for your cupboard, should it be a light wood or a not so light wood? But when you put them together, they're kind of the same. It's just very slightly different tones, and you stress out because, oh my gosh, I'm not choosing between red or blue, I'm choosing between light brown and slightly light brown. It's so tough. So that's where our interior designer kind of swoops in and saves the day with her keen sense of discerning two very similar colors, and she'll just know, oh, okay, this one. Next thing is the way she helped us organize our custom-made items. So I don't think I would have ever been able to do that on our own, because there's so much technicality involved in trying to figure out how to build a customized piece of furniture from scratch. Just imagining it from nothing. It's not like going to a store and buying one. It's really just having to bake a cake instead of buying a cake. And I'm no furniture building expert. I'm not a carpenter. And I suck at math. Yeah, so I'm not gonna be able to figure out how to build any of these customized items. And I think it just made a whole world of a difference knowing that my ID was just there to completely settle that for me. Alright, and that's it. I hope this video was useful for you. I know they're not extremely technical or anything, but I hope that they were at least slightly practical or just brought up some things that you didn't think about that might be helpful for you when you start your renovation journey. So thank you so much for watching this episode of Growing Up, and if you liked it, do leave a like, and if you're on YouTube, do subscribe. So I will now end my video with a walkthrough of my entire house before and after renovation. Hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!